Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on preventing burnout and turnover. My name is Charles Summers. It is my pleasure to be serving as your moderator during this hour today. Please join Outmatch on Twitter at OutmatchHCM and tweet questions, thoughts, or quotes as you're listening by using the hashtag OutmatchInsights. Feel free also to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, as you can see right here. Here is my LinkedIn. So www.linkedin.com/in/SummersCharles. Reach out to me directly. I can answer your questions as well. Briefly, before we begin, I'd like to give you a quick overview of how we'll spend our time together today. The feature presentation will last approximately 45 minutes, and following that, we'll have some time set aside for a Q&A session with our presenters. After today's webinar, excuse me just a second. After today's webinar, we will send out these slides to everybody. You can see in the screen right here, we have a questions queue. So feel free to also put your questions there. Again, please tweet at OutmatchHCM or hashtag OutmatchInsights. We can answer your questions either way. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today, Chelsea Charron and Nikki Cunningham. Both are talent solution experts here at Outmatch, and they are here today because they eat, drink, and sleep industrial organizational psychology. They have about a decade together, in matching the right person with the right role, and so they're here to talk to you today about burnout and turnover.
Great. Thank you, Charles. So my name is Nikki Cunningham, and I'm very happy to be here. I have Chelsea with me here today, so you'll hear both of us kind of piping in throughout the conversation. So again, the intention of today's session is to share some insights on burnout, and even more specifically, the impact that we find it is having on organizations. So during the next hour, we'll spend our time together talking about, why burnout is really a problem and is something that organizations need to address and prevent. Next, we'll explore kind of how to spot burnout and what are some of those warning signs at both the individual and organizational levels. And then finally, we'll discuss some factors that lead to burnout, and again, the impact that it's having on organizations and potential ways to prevent it. So we definitely want this to be an engaging experience for you all, and we see the value in really learning from others. So we're going to ask you guys to participate throughout the session today. So there will be a few different polls that we'll ask you guys to engage in. And then we'll certainly leave some time for questions at the end. So as Charles had mentioned, feel free to chat in any questions that you might have directly into him. We will likely save them until the end of the session, but feel free to chat them into Charles along the way. So the first kind of poll that we have for you all to get you all kind of involved in the conversation is to talk about your personal experience with burnout. So what we would like you to do is first either go to the website that you see listed on the screen, so pollev.com/OutmatchNo976, or text OutmatchNo976 to 22333 to join. And then once you join, you can select A for yes, so yes, you've had some sort of personal experience with burnout, or B, you have not had any personal experience with burnout. So I'll give you guys just a minute to first join the poll and then respond. So just as a reminder, in order to join the poll, you text 22333, so the number 22333, and you'll need to text in Outmatch No 976. And then from there, it'll let you know that you've joined the Outmatch Knowledge Series session, and you can select or text in your answer. So I'll give you guys one more minute, and then we'll keep moving along. All right. Well, thank you all for your participation. We'll have a couple additional polls. So the next question that we have for you, so it looks like at least a few of you actually said, yes, I have experienced burnout. The next question we have for you is, what was the impact it had on you, both personally and professionally? So again, if you haven't joined our poll yet, follow the instructions. If you've already done that as part of the first poll, don't worry about it. You can simply text in your response. So just let us know very briefly kind of what was the impact that it had. All right, so we see a lot of responses coming in here. So health, quit, so quit my job, emotionally distressed, disinterested or dissatisfaction with the job. So certainly the impact of burnout can impact not only your health, but also impact your professional career as well. So thank you all for your participation. I appreciate that. So we know the burnout problem is real. And I think it was about 80% of you had actually said, I've experienced burnout at some point in my life. According to some research in the U.S., an estimated 28% of people have experienced burnout in their careers. And a study from Kronos and executive development firm Future Workplace actually found that 95% of HR managers report burnout is a significant detriment to engagement and retention. And 46% actually believe it is the driving force behind half of turnover each year. So we know that it is a huge problem. This probably isn't a shock to anyone here. That's probably why you're here today. And as the economy continues to improve and employees have more job options, it will become increasingly important to think about what you can do in your organization to address this burnout problem. So before we kind of jump into some of the factors that lead to burnout, one of the questions that we often hear from clients is, we don't even know that employees are burning out until it's too late and they're gone. So how do we spot it ahead of time? And I think one of the most critical things to really understand and to differentiate between is normal productive stress and burnout. So we're going to use two different examples to just showcase some of those differences. So kind of think about some of your own personal examples as we talk about each of these employee stories. So let's start with Henry Ford. Henry has been with this company for 3 years. He is an exceptional overachiever, so he's a rock star who volunteers all the time. He's probably your go-to person who is always looking for ways to improve. But lately his energy levels have fallen, so he often seems tired and he has been sick a few times this year. So one thing to think about is this stress? Is this normal productive stress? Or perhaps, is this burnout? Are these warning signs of burnout that is coming in the near future? When we think about this example of Henry Ford, this is more indicative of stress. So research shows that some stress is important in our lives. It keeps us on our toes, it helps us to strive towards goals, and it really makes us feel alive. The hormones related to feeling stressed are designed to get us out of danger, like a fire or enemy attack. Yet the body will also surge adrenaline when driving down the highway and some jerk cuts you off. So stress hormones are not selective. They activate whether the threat is perceived or whether it's real. So we are not meant to be living with that high level of stress or adrenaline 24/7. If this continues to operate at a full scale for an extended period of time, that is when that increased risk of burnout starts to occur. The next example we want to talk about is Lady Mercedes. So she's a senior director at an organization. She led a company-wide implementation, and lately she seems disengaged and unmotivated. She has completely stopped attending after-hour events and doesn't speak up or participate in meetings like she used to. So again, consider if perhaps you've had an employee in a similar type of situation where you've noticed some of these significant changes, or perhaps this is something that has happened to you. I'm sure you guys can guess the answer to this one. And really what we're seeing here is burnout. So burnout is widely defined as a constant depletion of mental, physical, and emotional energy without expected or real needs being met. And burnout is a normal response to putting in too much effort over a longer period of time without taking in what you need to really balance and restore yourself. So some of the signs that we're seeing here from her, these significant changes in behavior, are really more indicative of burnout. So as you think about kind of how to identify potential burnout or risk for burnout, whether it's for yourself or employees in your organization, keep in mind a couple of things. So typically stress is characterized or seen as over-engagement at times, being emotionally charged or overreactive, really showing frustration and having a sense of urgency or hyperactivity. And periods of stress can last for a while without long-term effects, but burnout is a more serious and chronic condition. And it's often characterized by disengagement, being emotionally numb or unmotivated, or becoming completely detached from the purpose of the work at hand. At an individual level, you may notice things like significant decreases in their energy or quality of work, cynicism, or a major decrease in participation. All of those signs that we talked about with Lady Mercedes. So Chelsea's going to talk a little bit more about measurement today and how you can really look at these things at both that individual and organizational level. But as you think about this at the individual level, there is oftentimes one person that has the most insight into these potential kind of warning signs, and that is a person's manager. So your managers are really key here. They are really your greatest resource to help not only notice some of these signs and do something about it, but also be proactive and address it before it's too late and it becomes a turnover problem. The good news is that there are some ways to prevent burnout. Excuse me. Chelsea and I kept combining burnout and turnover, so we call it burnover. But the good news is burnout can be prevented if warning signs are recognized and actions are taken to reverse the cycle of burnout. So next, Chelsea is going to take a deeper dive into some of these factors, the impact that it can have, as well as some strategies to address and prevent turnover.
Great, thank you, Nikki. Well, before we get started with that deep dive, how about we take a quick poll again using that poll everywhere feature and see what you guys think might be some causes of turnover. Specifically, let's imagine a call center where burnout is causing high attrition. What might be some factors leading to employee burnout? So go ahead and either through text or through the Poll Everywhere website, give us some responses. Great. So we're seeing a lot of really good responses. Thank you, everyone, for your participating. So many of you pointed out some of the key factors that Nikki and I also discovered that can cause an employee to cross that threshold from stress to burnout, including unfair pay, unreasonable workload, negative company culture, insufficient tools and resources, misaligned goals and roles, and a poor job fit. And a lot of those you did point out, so that was really great to see that kind of reemphasized. What's important to call out here, though, is that burnout is not usually caused by any one of these factors alone, but by a combination of these factors that lead the employee to feel that his hard work is not valued, he's not being supported to succeed, and he isn't being treated fairly. In alignment to that, when it comes to burnout, the reality of any of these factors are not as important necessarily as the employee's perception. So, for example, you may know that you're giving your employee competitive salary for the work that he's doing. You're giving him all the tools that he needs to succeed. But if he doesn't feel that way, if it's not being perceived that way, burnout's still likely to occur. So while it's easy to understand these factors in isolation, let's explore how they may play out in actual practicality, in application. So let's take a case study. Spot Hero is an app that connects people looking for parking spots with open parking spots. If you've ever tried parking in a crowded city, Nikki and I are here in Dallas, so we certainly come across this problem often. If you've ever tried parking in a crowded city, you know how frustrating it can be. So Spot Hero's call center employees do not have an easy job. They often deal with angry customers who are expecting to pull up to their reserved space only to find someone else is parked in it. And who do they call? They call the customer service line angrily, and the customer service employee has to deal with that upset customer. So on top of having to deal with frustrated or upset customers, these employees were working 9 to 10-hour shifts in an uncomfortable work environment, hunched over at a desk, talking all day, doing the same tasks day after day for minimal pay. The employees felt overworked and neglected from the organization. Not surprisingly, their call center employees weren't just stressed, they were burnt out and they were leaving. But what could be done, right? The job is the job, like it or not, right? Well, Spot Hero decided to get creative, and now, go back. Sorry, 1 second. And now, today, Spot Hero's call center has 0 turnover. How did they do it? Well, first, they identified the factors leading to burnout, and they found a common theme there. Spot Hero was treating its call center employees like human doings instead of human beings. So while they recognized that the nature of the call center role itself couldn't really change much, they decided to make the working environment and organizational culture a more rewarding experience for their people. They implemented employee appreciation programs that made employees feel recognized for their hard work. They now call their call center employees heroes and even instituted Hero Appreciation Day. They hired additional employees to reduce the workload to a more reasonable and sustainable amount, and they created a balanced work environment that included breaks and fun activities to give employees respite from work while building morale, including free pizza, happy hours, a talent show, and a break room. And I don't know about you, but free pizza sure motivates me. So although Spot Hero is an app and the call center is a pretty small component of their overall business, they still recognized that burnout needed to be addressed and decided to do something about it. But what if they hadn't? What impact would burnout have had on its people and its organization? So burnout impacts people on an individual level by causing emotional and physical exhaustion. Burnout individuals may experience depersonalization, which is the psychological withdrawal from relationships and the development of negative, cynical, and callous attitudes. Burnout can also cause lack of enthusiasm and a lack of motivation, feelings of ineffectiveness, and ultimately even clinical depression. As a result, a burnt-out employee may have trouble maintaining effective communication and efficacy in the workplace. In fact, more than 1/3 of employees suffering from stress lose at least 1 hour a day in productivity, and almost 1/3 miss up to 6 days of work just because of stress. And unfortunately, the impact of burnout does not stop when the employee is off the clock. Their relationships may suffer as they fight feelings of depersonalization and depression, and even their health can be impacted. Stress and burnout can cause a lack of energy, weight gain or weight loss, a weakened immune system, and even causing them to get sick more often. So how does burnout impact the organization? As we all know, unhappy and unproductive employees cause trouble for their employers. But exactly how does burnout impact your organization's bottom line? Stressed and burnt out employees have a way of impacting the entire organization, not just their department. It causes a culture of dissatisfaction and demotivation. As you see a decrease in engagement, your organization's productivity and product quality could diminish. If this impact lasts long enough, you might even see a dent to your brand's reputation, as employees and consumers alike become increasingly dissatisfied. Your organization is also going to have to deal with an increase in absenteeism and attrition. Burnout employees are just more likely to skip work or even quit. In fact, to Nikki's point earlier, according to a 2017 survey from Kronos, nearly half of HR leaders say employee burnout is responsible for up to half of their annual workforce turnover. And that can get really expensive. Turnover can have a huge impact on the organization. There are training costs, hiring costs, costs associated with lost productivity, and the impact it has on the overall morale or engagement of the team. In fact, according to a 2015 study by the Society of Human Resources, employers will need to spend the equivalent of 6 to 9 months of an employee's salary in order to find and train the replacement. Doing the math, that means that for an employee salaried at $60,000 will cost the company anywhere from $30,000 to $45,000 to hire and train a replacement. In another study conducted by the Center for American Progress, the cost of losing an employee can cost anywhere from 16% of their salary for hourly and unsalaried employees to 213% of the salary for a highly trained position. So I just want to let that sink in for a second. 213% for a salary of the salary for highly trained positions. That is a huge cost of turnover for the organization. So I know this isn't surprising news for anybody on the call today. We all know how important retention is. So how can you determine if burnout is hurting your retention? Here's some 4 simple ways to measure burnout within your organization. The first is simply to observe. Look for those warning signs that Nikki outlined earlier. Oftentimes, an observant manager or HR specialist can spot the signs of burnout simply by noticing. This is where a positive manager-employee relationship can really come into play. Managers who have strong relationships with their employees will be able to notice subtle changes in their behaviors or attitudes. And conversely, employees who have good relationships with their managers will feel more comfortable speaking honestly with that manager about why they may be feeling burnt out. But if you would like to quantitatively track burnout on an organizational level, surveys might be the solution. Engagement surveys, pulse surveys, or other similar indices can help to identify areas of dissatisfaction or even target specific departments that may be suffering from stress or burnout. Similarly, cursory analysis of timesheets can provide key insights into how employees may be feeling. Are your employees working long hours? Are they missing work more often than normal? Time tracking can be a useful and easy way to spot some early warning signs of stress and burnout. Finally, don't overlook the importance of exit interviews. When people do leave, ask the right questions, document their responses, and share your insights. When people quit, the easiest way to determine if their attrition is due to burnout is simply to ask. And when you do, make sure you act on that information so you can prevent burnout from causing additional turnover in the future. If you do notice some warning signs of burnout, what can you do? Nikki, can you provide some insights into how to prevent turnover?
Yes, thank you, Chelsea. So I know Chelsea just covered a lot of different factors that we know lead to burnout. One of them that we really want to take a deeper dive into today is job and organizational fit. And this is actually something that you have more control over as part of the selection process. So really the opportunity to prevent that burnout from occurring. So take a minute to imagine an accountant who is very outgoing, values her social relationships and interactions, but whose job offers very little scope for contact with colleagues or clients. Now imagine a manager that's required to take responsibility for a team, but who doesn't enjoy taking that center stage or being in a leadership role. So some of these innate factors, regardless of their skill set or experience, are likely going to have an impact on their ability to perform and really whether or not they're going to be satisfied or happy in that position. And when that mismatch does occur between their innate styles and the role or the organization, there is a much stronger likelihood for burnout. We see this effect again and again in research. So we know that it's important to think about. Most organizations know that hiring people with a strong fit for the role is important. So what gets in the way? Why is this a struggle? We are oftentimes in too big of a hurry to hire. So we hire warm bodies. We believe that sometimes that the skills or the experience can make up for some of those kind of innate style challenges. We believe that anybody can do some of these lower level jobs, which certainly is not the case. Oftentimes organizations simply don't know how to hire fit. Obviously a resume provides some insight into their skill set and their experience, but it becomes challenging to really get at those innate styles and how that might actually impact them on the job. So one of the things that organizations also can struggle with is the candidate experience. So sometimes organizations are cautious about introducing additional tools into the selection process because we know that there's a fight for talent out there, and you have to be cognizant of that candidate experience. It has to be engaging for them, and it also has an impact on your employment brand. So certainly some challenges when it comes to measuring that innate fit. In order to really help organizations do that, there are certainly some types of tools that we partner with our clients on. And it all starts with really looking at job success. What leads to success in organizations? What differentiates top performers from bottom performers? And what leads to being happy in that position? What are the things that are really important about your culture that you have to consider in the selection process? So again, once you really have that solid understanding of what success looks like, and this is clearly defined, you can use that information to help shape hiring tools. So personality assessments are a great way to get at that innate fit, both for your employees and as you're thinking about internal promotion. So Chelsea had mentioned managers and how they are so critical on the impact that they have on burnout and turnover. So really ensuring that you have the right managers in the right roles and that they are prepared to manage that type of situation is critical. Culture assessment, so not only understanding job fit, but organizational fit. Like I said, are there unique things about your culture that are really critical to assess in the selection process? If your culture is highly collaborative and it's important that people bounce decisions off one another, it's important that you're assessing that in the selection process. Is that something that also aligns with their preferences? Is that an environment that they're going to be happy in? The other thing to think about is video assessments and interview guides. So video assessment and interview guides really allow them to demonstrate the behaviors. So again, resumes provide some great insight into their backgrounds, but really having them demonstrate some of those behaviors and those skill sets is critical in this process. And then impact. So impact is a tool we actually have at Outmatch, and it allows you to really assess the quality of hire. And as you are thinking about your selection process, this really gives you insight into whether or not the tools that you're using are truly helping you identify those individuals that have a strong fit for the role and are hopefully then going to succeed, going to be happy, and are less likely to experience burnout. In addition to assessing overall job and organizational fit, these tools also serve as a way to give candidates a realistic job preview and an opportunity to self-select out of the process. So in certain roles or positions, it may be more critical to give them an opportunity to really have that day-in-the-life perspective. There are certain roles that it's going to be more critical to have this realistic expectation as part of that selection process. One example I can think of today is an airline that we partner with and help them select their flight attendants. And what we found is by having them actually demonstrate how they would read the safety instructions as part of the video assessment, gives them some insight into this is what it would actually be like for me to present. Even though they're not in front of people, they get a little taste of that. And we actually see people kind of self-select out at that point. So many opportunities to build this into your selection process. Some of the tools that I spoke about on the last slide absolutely serve in that way, but other opportunities definitely exist. So I would encourage you all to think about whether or not this is happening. 76% of new employees actually say that their job description was drastically different or not as originally described when they started. So, so definitely some opportunities there, and again, really the impact that is going to have on their long-term engagement and tenure is huge. So would, again, encourage you all to think about how can I really integrate these examples and these stories into my selection process. All right, so in summary, what we just wanted to kind of highlight here today is that the burnout problem is definitely a real problem. It is one that has a major impact on the bottom line. So we hope that you were able to walk away with some additional kind of insight into burnout and some things to take back to the team and think about, as well as some techniques to spot and measure burnout at both the individual and organizational level. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Charles. I think a few questions have come in, and feel free again to chat in any questions you might have, and we will do our best to address them.
Yeah, and so we have 3 questions today. The first one was brought to us by Jake in the audience. He just asked if we are going to send out the slides after, and yes, we are going to send those out to everybody that's in attendance today. So you'll have that, and then also we'll send out the recording as well. The next question that we got was, are there any personality traits that you all have seen linked to a greater likelihood of burning out?
Nikki, do you want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. So definitely, if any of you are familiar with Outmatch, you know that personality is our sweet spot. So we've done quite a bit of research around personality. And there are certainly some traits that we've seen a relationship with, either to turnover or burnout. So perfectionist type of tendencies. You know, individuals that have a really high level of kind of detail orientation, or something that we call a need for task closure. Really, sometimes it's those overachievers that thrive to a certain point. And those are certainly individuals that, you know, that benefit the organization, that tend to be those strong performers. But there comes a point where those individuals are going to burn out. So you have to look for those warning signs, and it may start as stress. And so, again, making sure your managers are looking out for those warning signs is very critical. The other relationship I would say in terms of personality to burnout is pessimism. So that is something that we measure in our personality tool. And this one, you know, you can probably easily see the connection there, but individuals that tend to be a little bit more pessimistic tend to worry more often. So they may be up late at night worrying about what might happen. Those individuals tend to be a little bit more reactive to stress. They may need more time to recoup from stressful situations. So certainly a link there. Frustration tolerance is another thing that we measure. So how quickly can they kind of bounce back from setbacks, or kind of similar in a sense to pessimism. But again, that certainly we've seen a connection between those. And one thing to keep in mind here is that everybody has their innate styles, and nobody's perfect. There's no perfect personality. So what is really important to keep in mind is, what are the requirements of the role? So if you have a job that has, you know, that there is a need to have a really high level of work pace, so a job where you are constantly moving, and you find out through a tool or, you know, as part of the selection process that a person has a much lower work pace, it doesn't mean that they can't do the job. It's just going to be more of a struggle. So it's about whether or not they've figured out tools and have put into place those tools to overcome some of those innate challenges. Otherwise, they're more likely to, again, not be a great fit for the role, which may ultimately lead to burnout. So I guess hopefully that answers your question. but certainly some relationships we've seen there.
Absolutely. And so I have another question here that comes from Sarah in the audience, and that is, what can you do if you personally are experiencing burnout?
Hi, I can take this one, Nikki. Thank you for your question. There are a few things you can do if you're experiencing burnout. The first thing that I would recommend is just to try to identify the cause. So why are you feeling this way? Is there just too much going on? Are you being asked to do things outside of your competence? Are you not getting the proper support? Are you in disalignment with your organization's values? Some of the things we covered today in this webinar, those factors, you kind of use them to reflect on yourself and your own work-life balance. Once you identify the reasons for your burnout, set realistic goals for yourself and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. I know we all sometimes feel a little bit hesitant to reach out and tell people that we're struggling or it's too much, but definitely don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Reach out to your boss, your coworkers, or even your friends, and develop a structural and personal support system, both at work and at home. And give yourself a break. Take time outs, take breaks, take time off, just to give yourself time to refresh. We all need that from time to time, even though there's a million things going on in life. We're all human beings at the end of the day, and we can only do so much. Make sure to maintain an active social life outside of work. That can help. But also try to develop a sense of organizational involvement, whatever that may look like to you personally. So if that's establishing better relationships with your coworkers, going out, getting involved, volunteering with them, going out to happy hour, whatever that looks like to you personally, developing that sense of organizational involvement can help. But I think the most important thing here is to remember that we all get stressed, and it's okay. Give yourself a break. And if you've already crossed that threshold from stress to burnout, there is hope. Just be kind to yourself and know that things will get better.
Thanks, Chelsea. We have one final question here that just came in from Jake. I'll read it off here. When you have 1 and 2 off associates suffering from burnout, what techniques can managers take to address, or what would be the process, or what would the process be to assess the driver of burnout for this individual?
So I'll take that one, and Chelsea, you certainly feel free to add on to anything I might have missed here. But I think where it really starts with is just having kind of open conversations between managers and their employees. So I know Chelsea talked about that a little bit, but employees need to feel like they can go to their boss with these types of issues or problems. So I would say ensuring that that relationship is really meaningful and trusting is foundational. The impact, as I'm sure you all know, that individuals that are experiencing burnout can have on their teams is huge. So we've looked at some research on what they call toxic employees, which is a very harsh name for somebody experiencing burnout, but it can have a kind of a toxic impact on the team. It can impact morale. It can impact team performance. So certainly being able to be proactive about that is key here. And like I said, I think really starting with the relationship between the manager and the employee is kind of core. Now, in terms of kind of what can you do to assess what might be the cause or the factors that are leading to that burnout, I do think, again, that open conversation is where it begins. So regularly checking in with the employees. How are you doing? Like, just a very simple question. How's everything going? How can I help you? How are you feeling? One of the things we actually do here at Outmatch is we use a system called 15-5, which allows us to kind of do a pulse check of the organization, and we ask employees, that's the first question, how are you feeling on a scale from 1 to 5? And it just gives you a sense of kind of what's going on. How are they generally feeling? Are they engaged? So I'm not, if that's something that your organization isn't doing, I'm sure you could do that in some sort of survey format. But it does allow people that maybe don't feel comfortable talking directly to their boss, to voice some of those concerns in a different way that they feel more comfortable with. So it kind of gives you that pulse check. Chelsea, anything else that you would add in terms of kind of what managers can do to address burnout on the team?
Just being proactive, I think, is really important in establishing those relationships. initially before your employees start to get stressed and burnout, so that when it does happen, they feel comfortable reaching out to you and they feel comfortable getting help from you.
Yep, absolutely.
We just had one more question asking what is 15.5?
So 15.5 is a system that essentially allows us to provide feedback on kind of how everything is generally going each week. So essentially what we do is we're asked a few different questions, and organizations have the ability to customize those questions, but they're typically around, again, kind of how's everything going, how are you feeling, what have you accomplished this week, how does it kind of relate to your goals. So it does, I think, help trigger some more in-depth conversations between managers and employees. We actually use it with our boss as a foundation for our one-on-one conversation. So what are we working on? What are we really going to focus in on the next week? And where might we need some support? The other thing that sometimes we do, we rotate questions around what are some opportunities for improvement in the organization, or how can we be better or more intentional about really living out our culture and our values. So I think it's a really great tool. If you guys have anything to add to that, feel free. But certainly I think getting that pulse check every week can be really valuable in helping you to prevent stress from turning into burnout.
Then what does the 15.5 stand for?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's supposed to take 15 minutes.
5 minutes.
Oh,
nope. Nikki was right. It's 15 minutes with 5 questions.
Yes,
right?
I believe. That's a great question. I know that it's supposed to take 15 minutes. It's supposed to be short and sweet. I don't exactly know what the 5 stands for. I'll be completely transparent there, but certainly would recommend that you all check it out if it's something you're interested in.
Yeah, if you wanted to look it up, it's spelled, so it's the number 15 and then written out 5. So 15 and spelled out 5.
Mm-hmm.
And that wraps it up for all the questions. So we've kind of wrapped up all the material for today, but please feel free to continue the discussion on Twitter with the hashtag OutmatchInsights. I'd like to say thank you one more time to both Nikki and Chelsea. Please join us on our next webinar on April 13th. We are actually going to join forces with Human Capital Institute, and we are going to deliver a webinar on improving candidate experience. You can register for that on our website at outmatch.com/webinars. You can actually see all of our upcoming registrations for the next, I believe, up to 4 months now we have on there right now. So go on there, see if there's any topics that interest you or your staff, and please join us. So I just want to give one last thanks to everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.